Everyone wants retainer clients right now, and honestly, it makes a lot of sense. We are in times where everything is not really certain. So MRR, or monthly recurring revenue from retainers from your clients, is something to dream of. Data also backs this up. 60 to 70% higher lifetime value versus project clients. 12 to 18 months average retainer relationship length, as opposed to 6 or 12 weeks for a simple project. And also there's less selling, which is, I think, one of the most compelling reasons why somebody would switch to retainer. So the model is good. The problem is not the model itself. The problem is that studios switch to retainers without having the proper infrastructure in place. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the 4 biggest differences between a project-based client and a retainer-based client. And for each one, I'm going to show you a system, either it being an automation or a dashboard or a simple tool, something tangible you can implement this week. So let's get into it. Now, in a project, scope is defined usually once, right? The client signs off on a brief, you have something in the contract, and if they want something extra, you're going to say, okay, this is going to take this long, it is going to cost you this much. In a retainer, that conversation stops happening because everything feels open-ended to the client. He feels like he can just write you a message, or he can just write you an email with, hey, can you just add this extra feature, or hey, can you just tweak these really quickly? And because the retainers are small, you're going to be saying yes, and everything is going to be stacking, and you find yourself at the end of the first 4 weeks that you have 60 hours logged for a 40-hour scoped month. And this leads us to the main problem, and one of the biggest in my opinion, which is scope drift, right? Because it's one that makes you be unprofitable. Week 1, everything is normal. Week 2, he has 1 small request. Week 3, he has 2 more requests. And again, at the end of the month, you see that you have 60 hours logged when in fact you just have 40 hours scoped on the contract. And that's a big issue that is actually happening constantly. Now, how could you solve this? The idea itself would be that you have to guard everything. You have to control the environment in which your client is going to request you some things. It might look something like this. Let's say the client has a request, right? He's going to write you that request via a form that you are going to give it to him, or maybe via email, right? That output is then going to be checked by an AI. This specific AI is going to have context, and that context is going to be the scope document that you guys have signed on at the beginning of the retainer, where every information is nested. For instance, the amount of hours you have logged, or the requirements for adding some extra new features. Then the AI is going to filter that response into 3 buckets. Green is going to be if it is in scope, basically is going to be added to the queue. If it is borderline, which is close to what you guys have talked about, it is going to be flagged for review, and you are going to manually go and review that and respond to the client. And if it's directly out of scope, a draft response is going to be sent to your client via email or whatever other channel you're going to be choosing, which is going to state that, okay, look, your request is out of the scope. This was our scope. Maybe you can even send in the document. If maybe you still want this feature added extra, it is going to cost you this much. Again, the idea is to be always in control, and you are going to dictate the rules based on the scope document. Therefore, you are going to have to dictate the way that the client is going to interact with you and the way that the client is going to give you directions moving forward with all of the requests and new tasks that he wants. This is just one system that you can use, but you can use multiple other systems. Again, the idea is to be in control. Also keep in mind that the scope document is the foundation of this whole system. If you don't have a clear written scope per retainer with your client at the beginning of your collaboration, then it is going to be really hard to have a smooth collaboration. And it doesn't really matter if you add any automations or a system, it's just not going to work. The document is the basis of everything. Now, going back to our project, communication usually is structured and it's pretty clear. You have milestones, right? When you have a brief, when you have the first draft, when you have the reviews, so on and so forth. The client usually knows what to expect and when. Now, if we go back to our retainer model, the work is usually continuous. There are no really clear milestones that you have set up in place at the beginning of the retainer. And without a rhythm that you have constantly with your client, one of 2 things usually happens. Either he's going to constantly message you because they don't really know what is going on, or they go quiet and assume that nothing is being done. And both of these options erode trust, and trust is one of the most important things when you have retainers. So you, the studio or the client itself, are going to always try to maybe communicate more, constantly have back and forth with messages or emails, or either one of you 2 are going to be silent. So one is going to dictate the terms and the other one, it's only going to say yes or no. Now, usually, again, this erodes trust and we don't want that. So in order to fix this, again, it's kind of similar to the first point. We want to control the environment, specifically the communication environment between you and your client. For this, you can build an automated weekly update system. So let's say every Friday at 4 p.m., we have this as a trigger, right? The date itself. You can have something like a make.com scenario or an A10 or whatever other automation tool you are going to be using that pulls ClickUp tasks or whatever task you have in your project management tool, the ones that are done, the ones that are in progress, and the ones that are upcoming, right? All of these information is going to be formatted in an email template where it's basically going to tell the client, hey, this is what we've done this week. This is what is going on right now. And these are the next step that we will have to take in the next couple of weeks, right? We are going to update him on the status constantly, every single week, Friday at 4 p.m. or whatever hour you are going to choose. And we are going to send this via Gmail or, again, whatever type of communication channel you want to do this with. And therefore, the client receives weekly update. And you're going to set this once and it basically runs forever. You don't have to constantly remind yourself, oh, I have to update the client, or the client is not going to have to constantly go and ask you, oh, how is everything going? How is this project going? Do we need to give you something else? The communication is going to be structured, it's going to be automated, and it's going to be predictable. The key here is that the update has to feel human. Okay, because you don't really want to have something overly automated and the client is only going to see like a really AI-ish report on everything that you are doing. And he's not going to talk to you like human to human for a few months and only maybe in meetings, because that's kind of like a cold feeling that he's going to get. And again, there's no trust there. We are humans. We need to have human contact. You got to be careful a bit on how you structure this report and how this communication also is going to flow in terms of the cadence, like how often, and also in terms of the language itself and the way that you present this information to him. Now, let me present you a scenario that usually actually happens with studios, especially in retainers. You have a retainer client who pays you 3,000 euros per month. Feels like a relationship. The communication is good, interesting work. You actually like the work that you are doing. The client is happy, right? And then at the end of the quarter, you look at the hours and you realize that you have logged 120 hours over 3 months. That is 40 hours a month. At your internal rate, you broke even, maybe even worse. And this happens a lot because retainers feel maybe easier to work on. Maybe you have more pleasure out of the work that you are doing for a client for a long time and you're attached to him. But also you have to put some boundaries between having a good relationship with your client and the profitability of your studio. And most of the times this happens because of visibility or lack of visibility. Right? How many hours did we log this month? This is one of the most important questions that you should ask yourself. The solution for this seems pretty simple. You can build a retainer health dashboard or a place that is going to let you see clearly exactly the state that your studio is in, specifically all of the hours that have been logged and have been logged towards what type of work, billable or non-billable work. You need to always course correct when you're working in retainers because they're not really that smooth. Maybe a project, again, it's more structured, but with a retainer, you always have to be flexible. Therefore, you always have to have a clear vision over everything that is happening at all times. So what you can do is multiple things here. Maybe you have a simple Google Sheet where you are going to store all of this data. You can pull all of the data from your project management tool or whatever tool you are using to log time. Maybe you are using ClickUp, maybe you're using Monday, maybe you're using an external app specifically built for logging time, right? And you can put it inside Google Sheets. And just like I told you, maybe you can just directly look at the ClickUp time logs and move them into a vibe-coded dashboard that you have been building. So I want to show you a quick example of something that I've built for one of my clients. You can see that I've built them a timesheets page inside their whole dashboard where they can see their whole business, right? And basically what this is a board view and a grid view of all of the monthly utilization per person per week, basically their average billable hours, right? They have 12.1 hours, for instance, for the last month. The target is 23 hours per week per person. You can see that it's at 54%. You can make some changes now that you see these type of data and you know exactly what you need to change in order to make your studio more profitable. Maybe you can have this as a grid view to see maybe on a daily basis how they are going and how they are logging their time. Basically how it works, we extract every time logged for each one of the tasks inside the project management tool, which is monday.com, and we are aggregating them into a database, which I am using Supabase, and then we are reflecting them inside this visual dashboard for the CEO to see exactly how everything is working. Maybe this was a more complicated approach, but you can see the quality of everything and how nicely you can take decisions based on the data that you have. Also, you can build something like that, maybe a bit simpler in around 2 to 3 days, or you can even build a Google Sheet in a few minutes with AI. And this dashboard also changes the way you run your retainer reviews. You have all of this data in one singular place that you can discuss at the end of every week or at the end of every month with all of your employees, and maybe even with your clients to discuss maybe some changes in the contract itself, or with your employees to discuss, maybe you see that some of the best designers of yourselves are working on admin stuff, right? Which is kind of dumb. Therefore, oh, maybe I can automate this. I can free up some more time for my designers to work on designing. Therefore, my studio is going to be much more profitable in the future. Before we continue to the last difference, I want to tell you that I've built a Retainer OS starter kit, which is basically a fill-in-the-blank template to run the retainers properly from day one, which you can get in the link in the description of this video. Now, the last difference is one that quietly sneaks up on you. The work is good. Again, the client is satisfied, delivery is smooth, and then the invoice goes out at the end of the month. And then you hear nothing from your client. Complete silence. And usually that happens because they are trying to remember exactly what they got that specific month. You see, retainer work is invisible in a way that project work it is not. When you deliver a brand identity, okay, you see the brand identity itself. It's there. That is the output. But when you are in a retainer and you constantly tweak things or add new features or maybe add new designs and models, that is maybe going to go unnoticed. For the retainer model to work constantly and at a high level, the client needs to see that he is constantly going to get quality output out of you. And it makes sense to pay you a certain amount of money every single month. In order to fix this issue, what we need to do is we need to show our client at the end of every week or at the end of every month exactly what we delivered for him and the outcomes that we have gotten him. And for this example to make even more sense for you, I chose not a design studio, but an AI and automation agency, which is relatively similar to a studio. So this is what you did. You updated the onboarding flow, you fixed a pipeline bug, sent 3 client emails, you reorganized their Dropbox, and you updated project statuses. If he reads all of these things, he's like, oh yeah, it doesn't really seem that nice. What he needs to see is a translation of everything that you did in a language that he's going to like even more, which is basically you reduce new client setup from 3 days to 4 hours, you eliminated manual file sorting, saving around 2 hours per week, and you have 0 missed client touch points this month. Basically, it's the same thing as what you did, but put in some different words that the client is going to like even more. Now, how you can do this is at the end of every week, or maybe at the end of every month, you can pull all of the transcripts from the meetings that you had internally and with your client, all of the tasks, right? And put them in one singular AI chat, or maybe you build a custom agent for this, which is going to create you a document, a structured document, which is going to explain to your client, okay, this week or this month, we did X, Y, and Z, and it got you these specific results. Therefore, the client is going to constantly know, oh, it is worth it to pay this guy because he constantly gives me quality output and he constantly gives me something that gives me return on my investment. Also, the report doesn't have to be long. It can be just 1 page, but you have to be pretty specific to 3 to 5 outcomes that you have generated him that specific week or month. What you can also do is create something more unique, let's say, but you can do it because of AI. We love AI, right? You can vibe code a client portal. I just created an MVP really quickly here. Let me walk you through it. So you can have a singular place for your client to do all the communication in, to drop you all of the assets, to make all of the requests, right? So let's say you are the client, you are going to see this main page and maybe this vault thing, the admin thing is going to only be for you. But let's say I'm the client, right? If I want to book a call, I can click this. I have this Calendly link or cal.com link and I can book a call. If I want to go and drop some assets to the studio, I can click this, the vault, and I can see all the folders that are existing and I can drop the assets right here, right? Or I can see what needs review. If I need review, me as a studio from the client itself, me as the client can see, okay, there are these visual identity concepts that I need to review for the studio. I'm going to click on this and review them now. And also here at the bottom, I can see the project status. I can see, okay, what is now in progress, what are the tasks, what is next up, and what is recently completed. Now, you can connect this type of client dashboard to all of your tools. You can basically get all of the tasks from ClickUp.com or your project management tool. Also, again, with the review thing, maybe you update a certain tag to needs review, and then that specific signal from your project management app is going to come here as the specific card. You can, of course, embed your calendar link to this button. You can create this vault and connect it to your Dropbox or your Google Drive. AI can help you do this fairly easily, right? But the idea is to have something tangible, something visual that the client can use in order to communicate with you and in order to have a pleasant retainer, a pleasant connection with you. And this makes you look like a true professional, right? Because it is something that not a lot of people actually have, client portals. And or if they have them, it's something built in a project management tool which looks really ugly. You can see that you can customize this to your aesthetic. And yeah, it's just pretty striking for a client to see something like this, and you are definitely going to impress him. Also on your side, maybe you can have an admin dashboard that only you can see with all of your active clients, the active projects, the pending reviews, and maybe you'll have some buttons to sync all of these data directly from ClickUp or project management tool or whatever. So yeah, this is the beauty of AI. We can do a lot of things with vibe coding right now, and he can help us build all of these creative ways of interacting and with our clients, especially with our retainer clients, and making everything look more high quality. To recap a bit the differences, first of all, we have the scope drift. Then we have the communication that we need to be careful of. Then we need to be careful of our visibility as a studio with these projects, with these retainers. And also at the end, how does our client perceive our work and sees our value monthly or weekly? I hope this video helped. Again, you have the document, the Notion document that will help you with everything down below in the description. You can access it. Of course, if you have any questions, please put them down below in the comments, and I'm going to see you soon on the next video.